I shall not be moved just like a tree planted by the water.
My name is Wilton Robinson Jr., and I am the president of the Roosevelt Public Library. We were here today to witness the second debate on the presidential election that's going to be held on November 6, 2012. And it was a very enlightening evening with President Obama and Governor Romney. I thought it was very exciting.
Basically, I thought it was an excellent idea, and it shocked me that the Roosevelt Library was having a viewing of the presidential debate, because a lot of places will have a viewing for a Super Bowl or like the end of American Idol, but like this is like the presidential debate. And I just happened to come into the library, and then I saw the sign, and I thought it was really awesome. It's really providing me with an outlet to watch it in a comfortable environment while I know I'll actually get a chance to pay attention to it because nobody's bothering you.
I said we're going to bet on American workers and the American auto industry, and it's come surging back.
I would love for the incarceration rate of black males at 2 million black males behind bars to be a lovely presidential debate. But we know that that's not going to happen. So I would like for in this debate for President Obama to actually expose all of what Mitt Romney is planning on doing if he becomes president. And I would like for neither one of them to be very polite, but to expose each other so that voters can actually get a real look at to what's going on and not just what they're going to spin or try to sell us.
Lay off the workers, strip away their pensions, and you still make money.
The people who live in Roosevelt were the first blacks to like have migrated from the South when it's called the Great Migration.
The Great Migration is perhaps the biggest underrepresented story of the 20th century. 6 million black Southerners left the South in search of new lives. By the time the migration was over in the 1970s, few Americans had not been touched by it. The children and grandchildren of those who decided to leave the South were raised in a world that their ancestors could not have imagined.
People that have been a part of the Roosevelt community since the 40s. My grandmother and her husband bought their house on the borderline of Roosevelt and Freeport, and they burnt a cross in front of their house. And these people are resilient. And you have two communities within the community, and you have that in every race. You have the people who are still in their 80s, their 70s, their 60s, and their 50s who remember a lot of the solidarity from the community and still have those deep Southern ways.
I think that the citizens, not only here in Roosevelt, but around the country, they want to hear the views. They want to hear the vision of both of these candidates and try to make a clear decision on how we should move this country forward and make sure that every person is accounted for.
I want to be a part of what the folk are doing in this community and want to see the turnout and want to see some of the comments taken by people that need to be heard. Whether you're middle class or low income class, people want to go to work and people want to know what's going to be done about their future.
I expect those new energy sources to be built right here in the United States. That's going to help Jeremy get a job. It's also going to make sure that you're not paying as much for gas.
Mitt Romney was speaking about helping businesses, and if you made something like $250,000 a year and you was a business owner, he would be supportive of you. Most businesses that are run by families or small businesses don't make $250,000 a year. You're talking about corporate companies that make millions of dollars a year. That's who this is going to be beneficial for if he becomes president and looks towards businesses as far as the outcome of our future.
You're going to end up going twice as far in a gallon of gas. That's why we've doubled clean energy production like wind and solar and biofuels.
I would like to see by both candidates a layout. If given the opportunity to be president of this great country, I'd like to see what they would have featured far as their goals coming into office.
This year, with the presidential election being so critical and crucial, I felt that having a round table or looking at the both candidates debating would inspire some of our young people and even not so young to go out and spread the word that we must exercise our right to vote.
What would you like to see if Obama wins the next election? What would you like to see him do that he has not done in the last 4 years?
I just happened to be walking from the supermarket and ran into a library employee who told me that the debate was being shown here at the library. So I was like, okay. Went home, dropped off my goods, left my cake. It'll have to wait till later. He came on down to join in, and I'm glad I did. My expectations were exceeded. It's really difficult to come back from the place that Obama was in. I was so riled up over the first debate that I'd written, I don't know how many emails to the White House, actually. I don't know if they got through, but I feel like the spirit of what I was trying to say got through because the president really did come through for me and for a lot of people who really wanted to see a fighter. A couple of issues where I felt like he could have really hit grand slams. One of them was relating to violence, with the gun violence. And they were talking about violence on the streets, etc. But there's a lot of violence at home, too. I felt that he could have tied in the violence at home to the lack of support for families and for different populations of Americans who are struggling on different levels, struggling to find ways to support their kids, struggling to figure out not just how to live from paycheck to paycheck, but to figure out dreams, how to nurture dreams, and how to inspire kids to chase their dreams. There's this push for people to just get out and do whatever they have to do, but I think that a lot of parents miss the opportunity to really inspire their kids.
In 1965, we gained the right to vote by the Voting Rights Act. And we lost that enthusiasm of voting. I just want people here in Roosevelt to understand that voting is the most essential thing in our history and in someone's life going out to exercise that right to vote.
At times, history and fate meet at a single time, in a single place, to shape a turning point in man's unending search for freedom. So it was at Lexington and Concord. So it was a century ago at Appomattox. So it was last week in Selma, Alabama. There, long-suffering men and women peacefully protested the denial of their rights as Americans. Many were brutally assaulted. One good man, a man of God, was killed.
The 1965 Voting Rights Act comes up every 25 years. They have to renew it. I mean, that is very important, and people should know that.
It took this Congress 95 years from the moment that the 15th Amendment was added to the Constitution of the United States for this Congress to wake up after Selma to Montgomery to pass legislation to implement the Voting Rights Act. For me to stand here and listen to my distinguished colleague, the distinguished gentleman from Virginia, the chairman of the subcommittee, for him to argue that there may be a time, and we may be approaching a time, when the Voting Rights Act preclearance provision of Section 5 is no longer necessary, couldn't be further from the truth.
The only way you're going to get to know these things, to know about any law, about any issue that's vital for you, is that you have to come out to these forums. You have to be informed by newspapers and watching the news and the radio, listening to the radio, and coming out and collectively making a decision as important as this, as electing the next president of the United States.
I was asked to sort of kind of spearhead questions and discussion after the candidates' debate. I have to say the comments were excellent, the questions were good, and it was a pleasure to be here. I was able to tell everybody something about the League of Women Voters, how we came into being in 1920, after the vote was passed to give women the vote, and how hard women worked for years, for 47 years, to secure that vote, how we were jailed. Our ancestors, the suffragists, were sent to jail, they were tortured, their meeting rooms were burned down sometimes, but they continued to fight. What would you like to see?
I would like to see him be able to put his jobs plan in action. He hasn't been able to do it. He presented it, I believe it's 2 or 3 times, and they wouldn't act on it. They wouldn't discuss it. But it's not going to happen if he doesn't get enough Democrats in the Congress.
He seemed to be going more after the vote rather than having any solid ground to stand on. Because a lot of his policies, for example, the healthcare, which he hates so much, is really started off with him. So I think that he's unable to say to us, I'm going to do this or that, because he's depending on pleasing the group that he wants to please. Okay? And he doesn't want to sound like Obama, knowing that Obama is on the right track.
The president has a vision for this nation. He has a vision for everybody. He should be encouraged. And he will only succeed if all of us play our own part by voting, because this is a critical time for this nation to move forward. We are not moving backwards.
And also we know, and I think we're painfully aware, that American students rate pretty low down on the international standard, especially with science and math.
Our job now is to go out to the public and make sure that everybody make a clear decision on how this country should move forward. And you heard it tonight. I'm hoping everybody here goes out and call everybody you know that they have to get out the vote. They have to get out the vote.
I shall not be moved just like a tree planted